Hip-hop, the streets, and fundamental human decency all have unwritten norms. You never touch children, and you never treat a man's mother disrespectfully, particularly when it's Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. However, Atlanta royalty's son, King Harris, just done the unimaginable. This morning, footage of what looks to be King Harris at the grave of 50 Cent's late mother, Sabrina, went viral, and the internet froze. He didn't simply appear, though. King allegedly desecrated the cemetery while spewing some of the most heinous words we've ever heard at a woman who died decades ago. A move that has appalled even his most devoted supporters. Why did King Harris decide to pass away on this particular hill? Is this a desperate attempt to get attention, or are we just witnessing the surface of a darker, more profound blood war between Gunnett and the Harris family? The 50 Cent response was deafening, but the disrespect was loud. This time, 50 didn't only share a meme, he didn't simply dismiss it with a "Get the Strap" hashtag. He went to the burnt ground. Fifth responded angrily within minutes of the video going viral, indicating that this is no longer only a social media feud. This is private, this is risky, and the truth of poking a sleeping giant is about to dawn on Atlanta's wild child, King Harris, the film that started the fire, the history of tension between T and 50 Cent that culminated in this breaking point, and the scary ultimatum 50 recently gave to the entire Harris household are all being examined tonight. In this game, once you over the cemetery line, there is no going back. So grab your popcorn but keep your eyes open. We must examine King Harris's psychological development in order to comprehend how we came to the position where a young man feels authorized to defile the memory of a deceased woman. We have witnessed King's identity struggles for years. There is a huge shadow associated with being the son of a legend like T. Additionally, King has devoted the majority of his late teens to demonstrating that he is more than just a wealthy suburban child. The smoke is what he wants. The reputation is what he wants. However, there is a huge difference between conducting business and doing something so horrible that the entire culture turns against you. The event took place late on Tuesday night. King can be seen standing in a graveyard in a number of now-deleted videos. The mood is joyous rather than depressing. There are a few associates around him. The energy is frenzied and the camera is trembling. The name Sabrina Jackson appears on the headstone when the camera pans down. Sabrina is more than just a name to people familiar with 50 Cent's past. His whole life narrative revolves on her. The mother who reared him in South Jamaica, Queens, was tragically killed when Curtis was just 8 years old. 50 has dedicated his entire career to honoring, defending, and grieving for her. King's speech in the video centers on a recent remark made by 50 Cent on T's parenting. A recent altercation between King and his father at a Falcons game was made fun of by 50, the king of online trolling. It was typical 50 Cent petty, funny to some, and irritating to others. King, however, did not find it amusing. It was interpreted by him as a declaration of war. King started yelling into the camera as he stood over the grave, saying that if 50 wanted to talk about family, they should talk about deceased family. The images that ensued are what caused the internet to go crazy. It looks like King is unzipping his trousers. The implication and the liquid striking the stone were clearly visible, even though the video trims away at the most explicit parts. Even worse, insults followed. He made fun of Sabrina's death and used her name as a joke to show that he wasn't afraid of New York's big scary wolf. The response came right away. The comment areas were devoid of flames, emojis, and support within seconds following the upload. They genuinely worried about King's security. 50 Cent is the last person you want to personally provoke. As even the most seasoned players in the rap industry are aware, we are discussing a man who made it through 9 bullets, a man who methodically destroyed the careers of Benzano, Ja Rule, and every executive who opposed him. However, hasn't 50 Cent evolved over time? He is now a television tycoon. Hundreds of millions of dollars are at stake for this guy. The majority of people anticipated a post condemning younger generations' lack of respect or a CSAN strike. They were mistaken. 50 Cent chose not to follow the corporate path. He returned to 2003 with a lot of men's vitality. The fury didn't start as a meme. Instead, it started with a single image of King Harris posted on Instagram in the 1950s. Everyone in the industry shuddered when they saw the high-resolution picture of the young man and the caption. 50 didn't speak much, but he didn't have to. He went straight to T and asked his longtime friend if this was the stuff he was promoting. Although he generally plays games, he assured Tip that this isn't one. He went on to say that not all debts are settled with cash. Uploads and in-person visits are how they get compensated. There's more than just 2 rappers at odds here. It's a collision of generations. King Harris is a product of the social media age, where shock value is equivalent to money. Maybe King was just satisfied with this. He felt like a savage. However, he was unaware that he was entering a world where decisions had long-term, bodily repercussions. Insiders in the sector were buzzing right away. 50 was unreachable for several hours after watching the film, according to people close to the Gunnett camp. This typically indicates that he is in a boardroom or making non-legal phone calls. It was equally deafening to hear the quiet from T.I.'s camp. Imagine being tipped, a guy who has put in countless hours to create a legacy of extravagant hustle, only to have your kid perhaps incite conflict between your family and the most tenacious man in industry. The love hip-hop community and the larger Atlanta culture started to pull away as the word circulated. No one wished to be connected to King's deeds. Like New York, Atlanta has a code. You don't include the ancestors. Mothers are not involved. King Harris did more than merely incite 50 Cent by cracking that code. He distanced himself from the streets that he had been making such an effort to impress. The back and forth that began taking place behind the scenes, however, is the true narrative. According to information we've received, the 50 Cent security detail was observed in parts of Atlanta they don't typically visit. Is 50 going to use his enormous media empire to make sure King Harris never has a future in this field? Or is he preparing a physical response? 50's outburst was more than just rage. It was a chilly, calculated pledge. It's frightening when 50 Cent goes silent. His loudness serves as a warning, but by the time he becomes angry, it's too late for the other guy. We must wonder, where is T as we begin this saga's next chapter? Why hasn't the Southern King ruled over his son? According to some, T is afraid of how this will affect his relationship with 50. Others contend that King no longer pays attention to logic since the gap between father and son has widened. However, 50 Cent is concentrating on the outside world while the Harris family struggles with their internal conflict. He is observing the contempt. He is preparing a counterattack that might permanently alter Atlanta's hip-hop scene while reflecting on his mother's memory. There is more to this than just a video. This is about King Harris's realization that the internet is a target rather than a shield. The greatest marksman in the game is 50 Cent. In the initial hours after the occurrence, there was a deafening stillness from the Harris household, although it was 50 Cent, who is well known for his persistent bullying techniques on social media, didn't stop at one post while the world waited for an official apology or retraction. Instead, the mood changed from shock to cold. Calculating digital warfare, he started undermining King Harris's brand methodically, and he did it with a level of rage we haven't witnessed since his conflict with Floyd Mayweather or Rick Ross. However, it felt different this time. It was more than simply jokes and memes. It concerned the basic breach of a man's tranquility. 50 Cent's fury showed up in a way that severely damaged King's credibility. 50 started sharing old footage of King Harris, contrasting his tough guy image with reality TV footage of him sobbing during family disputes. It was an obvious message. 50 wanted the world to view King as a foolish youngster who had ultimately taken more than he could handle, rather than as a threat. Reports of a furious private conversation between T and 50 Cent surfaced as the online assault persisted. Industry insiders and leaked screenshots that have been making the rounds in love and hip-hop circles claim that T contacted 50 in an attempt to defuse the tension. These communications were said to have a frantic tone. T, a man who takes great pride in his opulent lifestyle and his position as king of the South, was forced to defend the indefensible. How do you look someone in the eye? You've apologized for your son's desecration of his mother's grave to a man you've shared stages and hits with. 50 Cent's leaked answers were terrifying. According to reports, he told T that blood pays for blood, suggesting that Sabrina Jackson's mistreatment couldn't be resolved with a phone call or a public statement. The anger of the 1950s wasn't limited to King. It was a criticism of T's inability to teach his children proper street manners. The story swiftly changed from a rapper feud to a heartbreaking illustration of a generational gap. It wasn't simply King that 50 Cent was battling. He was trying the Harris legacy as a whole. The public outcry against King Harris intensified as the private drama played out. Atlanta's major promoters and businesses started to retreat. Following the video, at least 2 of King's planned club appearances have been permanently postponed, as we have confirmed. Atlanta's streets, which King has worked so hard to capture as his own, started to turn away. Behind the scenes, even members of the Love Hip Hop cast, such as Yandandi Smith, Harris, and Mendeces, who often remain impartial in family matters, reportedly voiced deep dissatisfaction. Regardless of the city you live in, you should never desecrate a grave. However, in keeping with his wild kid character, King Harris did not instantly concede. King doubled down in a furious Instagram live session that lasted just 6 minutes before getting flagged. He asserted that the New York vibe wouldn't work in Georgia, and that 50 Cent was all chatter. Many speculated that the pressure was finally getting to him because he appeared agitated, and his eyes were darting around the room. The internet didn't believe him when he claimed that his acts were a reaction to 50 tormenting his family for years. The realization that there is no excuse for what he did seemed to be bearing down on him in real time. The next action taken by 50 Cent was a masterclass in psychological warfare. He uploaded a memorial video to his mother, Sabrina, rather than reacting to King's live session. It was a montage of old pictures with a depressing soundtrack that emphasized the hardships she endured to support him prior to her passing. 50 didn't only appear to be the victim by doing this. He appeared to be the larger man guarding a priceless recollection. The public's perception of King became even more negative as a result. 50 then presented an ultimatum to the people. He threatened to grab the city's keys himself if T didn't manage the matter within a day. In 50 Cent's world, what does it mean to take the keys? It entails making the Harris family radioactive through his ties at stars, his extensive touring network, and his power in the spirit sector. Almost soon, the effects became apparent. There were rumors that 50 was negotiating the purchase of some contracts or debts related to T.I.'s companies, a strategy he had previously employed against competitors. 50 is interested in more than just winning the debate. He desires to possess the opponent. When 50 Cent posted a map of Atlanta with a target emoji over a particular neighborhood, the tension reached a breaking point. It was a horrifying inference. It implied that the fury was transitioning from the virtual to the real world. T's Pop's restaurant and their family estate reportedly had twice as many security personnel on duty overnight. The city was tense, waiting to see if the father's tragedy would result from the son's error. The video is no longer the only aspect of the question. It's about getting by. King Harris has accomplished what rival rappers and federal probes were unable to. The most dangerous man in the hip-hop industry has been really shaken by him. This conflict is heading toward a clash that may be unstoppable. T is torn between upholding the code and loving his son. A mother's memory and a lifetime of being told he couldn't succeed serve as 50 Cent's sources of motivation. The stage is set for a conclusion that will either result in a disgraceful public apology or a lasting rift in the history of Southern rap. 50 Cent isn't merely retaliating, he is reloading. And King Harris is learning that you finally have to drown in the consequences of urinating on a grave. The moment of no return has been reached. Beef in the hip-hop world typically follows a set pattern. A few Instagram postings, a diss tune, and perhaps a run-in at an award ceremony. However, the terms of engagement for 2026 have been revised as a result of King Harris's actions and 50 Cent's response. The rage we've been monitoring wasn't merely a fleeting outburst. It was the start of a methodical, chilly erasing. 50 Cent changed his approach, moving away from his loud, confrontational posts and into a phase of quiet power when word of the grave incident and the ensuing shirt dispute flooded the blogs. 50 started making high-level calls to TV networks and distribution partners. According to industry sources, the message was deadly, yet subtle. You are not doing business with the mogul if you are doing business with the son. This is a death sentence for someone like King Harris who is attempting to pursue a career in reality TV and music. When the Hill King decides to block all of your supplies, you are unable to construct a fortress. However, the business aspect of this conclusion isn't the most intriguing aspect. It's the dynamics within the family. In a move that astonished many, T eventually broke his silence. Tip was quite exhausted during a recent interview on the Ebro Laura Rosenberg show. He acknowledged that he was near his breaking point. "I said, that's enough," he revealed to the world. The public realized that even T, the man who brought King up to be a stand-up man, could no longer defend his son's behavior. When I saw that damn t-shirt. When a father publicly acknowledges that his son has legitimate ways to reverse all the lessons I've been teaching, the beef shifts. It's no longer 50 Cent versus the Harris family. It's 50 Cent and T, both looking at King Harris as a liability. This is the ultimate endgame. 50 Cent played for. He didn't have to lift a finger to destroy the Harris household. He simply allowed King's own lack of discipline to alienate him from his own father. However, 50 Cent wasn't done. He decided to deliver the final blow through the one medium he owns better than anyone. Television reports have surfaced that 50% is fast-tracking a segment for one of his upcoming dowsies that focuses on the price of disrespect. While he hasn't named King Harris directly in the promotional materials, the imagery, including shots of Queens and references to Sabrina Jackson, makes it crystal clear he is turning King's viral moment into a permanent case study on what happens when you play with a man's trauma. The fallout in Atlanta has been equally severe. The Love Hip Hop Atlanta production has reportedly been in crisis meetings. There is a serious conversation happening about whether King Harris is too radioactive for the screen. Advertisers don't want to be associated with grave desecration, and cast members are reportedly hesitant to film with him, fearing the 50 Cent curse. We've seen this before. Anyone who 50 targets tends to find their opportunities drying up, their phone calls going unanswered, and their reputation permanently stained. But what about the street element? The streets don't forget, and they certainly don't forgive disrespect to the dead. Rumors in the A's suggest that King has been advised to keep a very low profile. The bravado he showed in those Instagram lives has vanished, replaced by a haunting reality. He is a 21-year-old man who is now at odds with a billionaire who has the memory of a shark. In a final chilling post before the ceasefire seemed to take effect, 50 Cent shared a photo of his mother's actual headstone, clean and surrounded by fresh flowers. The caption read, "The dead see everything, and the living eventually have to pay the bill." As we come to the end of this three-part story, the lesson for the next generation of rappers is clear. There is a line between trolling and tragedy. King Harris crossed that line, believing it would make him a legend. but instead it made him a pariah. It served as a reminder that while King may have thought he was winning a social media battle, he was actually losing his future. T is left trying to salvage a legacy that his son nearly burned to the ground, and 50 Cent continues his reign, proving once again that he is the most dangerous chess player in the game. The fury might have subsided for now, but the scars are permanent. In the industry, they're calling this the Harris lesson. You can talk about the money, the cars, and the clothes. You can even talk about the music. But the moment you bring the ancestors into the mix, you aren't just starting a beef. You're signing your own professional death warrant. 50 Cent didn't just fire back. He ended the conversation. And King Harris, he's left standing in the rain, realizing that some fires are too big for even the wild boy of Atlanta to put out. This is easily one of the darkest chapters we've ever covered in the history of Atlanta and New York hip-hop. But now, I want to hear from you. Did King Harris finally go too far? Or is 50 Cent's fury just another part of his media game? Is there any way for T to fix this? Or is the Harris legacy officially tarnished? Drop a comment below. I'm reading every single one of them tonight. If you want to stay updated on the absolute latest in this unfolding saga, and you don't want to miss our deep dive into the Gunnet vs. Grand Hustle fallout, make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe right now. Turn on those post notifications so you're the first to know when the next part of this story drops.